complete ShipWeight on a standalone computer, you have to go to shipweight.com and go to our download section and download 3 files. First, you have to download the client installation, and you have to select either the 64-bit version or the 32-bit version depending on your operating system. Next, you have to download the ShipWeight database server install, and this is the same for both 32 and 64-bit systems. And finally, you have to download SQL Server Express 2012, and again distinguish between the 32-bit and the 64-bit version depending on your operating system. In this case, I'm installing on Windows 8.1 on a 64-bit operating system. So I've downloaded the SQL Server Express 64-bit version, the client install for 64-bit, and the database install. And now I'm going to guide you through the installation process. So first we start by double-clicking on the SQL Express installation, and that starts out by extracting the files to the C drive, and this will take a couple of minutes. And when that's done, you may be asked to, as user account control, to allow the changes that's going to happen to the client. So we say yes to that. And now the SQL Server setup initiates the install center for this computer. So in the installation center that pops up, we can do several things, but here we're going to go and click the link that says New SQL Server Standalone Installation. So I'm clicking on that link, and then the SQL Server setup process says this operation for us. And the first things that happens is we get this license terms screen, and we have to accept the license terms and click next. And then it checks for product updates, and it asks if you want to include the SQL Server product updates. And in this case we will skip that, but you should really include it when you do the actual installation. But to save a bit of time, we're going to skip that and just click install, and then it starts to install the setup files. And when that's done, it's going to carry on with the actual setup of the SQL Server instance. Next thing that happens is a rule check, which is followed by feature selection. And for the feature selection, we can just leave the default selections here. The database engine services, SQL Server replication, and the SQL client connectivity SDK can all just be checked. And in this case, we'll just also leave the directories as default here. So we're just going to click next to go to the next screen. And the next screen asks us to name the instance. By default, it's going to suggest SQL Express, but in this case, I'm going to go and change SQL Express to ShipWeight. And it's important to remember or to write down the name of the instance, because you will use this when you select and or type in the instance name when you do the client installation of ShipWeight and server database installation of ShipWeight. So I've changed this to ShipWeight, and then I go to next. And the next screen here is the server configuration and the service accounts. And there are two services being installed: the SQL Server Database Engine, which has a startup type set to automatic, and the SQL Server Browser, which has been set to startup type disabled. Since this is set to disable, it means that when we do the install, if we browse the for the SQL Server, we're not going to see it in our browse list. And so for this one, we're going to change from disabled to automatic, because we want the browser service to start, so we were able to pick the SQL instance from our browse button. It is possible to also do it without having set this to automatic. Then you have to type in the name of the instance. But we'll change this to automatic and then go to next. And in the next screen is some database engine configurations, and all of these we can just leave as default. The only thing you may want to look into is the data directory, is where you want to store the actual databases that you use for ShipWeight. But we'll just leave these as default for now, and then click next. And we go next just for this error reporting. And then it's the rule check, and the installation progress is finally starting. So now we're just waiting for the actual files to be installed. And this process takes a few minutes, so in reality it will take a little bit longer than what you will see in this video, because we will skip it in this video to make a more effective video. And then the setup process is complete, and we can close the server installation center, and then we can continue with the actual ShipWeight installation. And I'm going to go to the database server to now install the ShipWeight databases on top on the SQL instance that we just installed. So I'm double clicking the ShipWeight database server install, which brings up the install shield wizard. And after the welcome screen pops up, we just click next and click the radio button to accept the terms of the license agreement, and click next. And now we have to select the database server that we will install these files on. And here it's important to remember the name of the database server. So we call it ShipWeight, and in that case, if you want to type it in, you can just use local and then backslash and ShipWeight, and then it should be able to find the correct database server. Alternatively, since we actually turned on the SQL browser service to be set automatically on, we can also browse to find this instance. So if I browse here, I will see this W8, that's my Windows 8 machine, and I can also now select it in this list, and then click next to start the actual installation. So just remember, if you didn't turn on SQL browser service to be set to automatic, you would not be able to find it using the browse button, but then you could have typed it in like I showed you with local backslash and ShipWeight. This is the only thing you need to do here really, and then click next, and it should start to install the databases on the SQL instance. And we click next and then install. And now we just have to wait for this to finish. It will take a few minutes. It's about 7, 8 databases that's going to be installed. Click yes to allow the changes, and so this progress bar is going to go one time for each database, so it's going to do 7 or 8 rounds of this progress bar. So that's going to take a few minutes, a little longer that you will see in this video, because we will skip it and go to the end. And so now this database install is finished, and we can just click the finish button to close that install wizard. And then there's one thing left, and that's to install the client installation. And again, we double click on the setup icon for the client install. So that starts up the client installation for ShipWeight, and in the welcome screen you just click next, and then you change to accept the terms of the license agreement and click next. And if you want to, you can give in a username and organization. We install this application for anyone who uses this computer, and click next. And this destination folder screen allows you to select the folder for the client application files. Just going to leave that with the default program files x86 ShipWeight 11 here, and then click next. And now again we have to also tell the client machine where is the database server. So again, you might type in local/ShipWeight because we named the instance ShipWeight, or you can click the browse button if you have turned on the SQL browser service and find the instance here. W8 is my Windows 8 test machine here /ShipWeight, and connect using Windows authentication, and then we can just click next. And on setup type you can just go with complete and click next, and then finally click the install button to execute the actual install, and we click yes to allow the install to happen. And now the actual application files are installed, and this is the last part of the ShipWeight installation. So that again just takes 1 or 2 minutes before it's done. And when this is done, the last thing to do is to so that's to set up the dongle as the last part. So now we've finished all the installation of the software. We can click finish, and now ShipWeight is installed. ShipWeight do set up a startup setup, but it does not create a shortcut on the screen. So if we want to test ShipWeight now, we can open up the Windows Explorer, go into the C drive and program files ShipWeight 11 folder, and find the ShipWeight executable, right click and do a create shortcut to the desktop. And again, the final thing is to just plug in the USB license dongle, and when you plug that in, the end of it should be lit up. If the end does not lit up, and if it doesn't find the drivers automatically, you can in this folder scroll down and find this setup DRV executable, right click and select run as administrator to manually make sure that you install the license driver for the dongle. And this is done automatically by the setup, but we see that sometimes it fails for depending on your security settings on the machine. So you may have to run this manually after. So then when the dongle is lit, you can start ShipWeight. And we start ShipWeight, double clicking shortcut, and we get the login screen. The default username is administrator. The default password is admin, all small capitals. You select the system either to be ShipWeight or SwibisWeight, and click OK to start the application itself. And that's it. If you are doing a network license or a network installation, the process is the same, except that instead of installing the SQL Server locally, you connect to a network SQL Server, and instead of doing a local dongle, you do a network dongle, and then you have to go into the Windows directory and go to your Windows catalog, find the SWINI file, and make sure that this file points to the correct path for the license dongle. So that's if you do a network install, but we have a separate video for that.